The country of free speech is now the country that will ban you from entering if you have speech that it doesn't like. The United States just announced that they were going to change one word in the visa immigration form, and here's why it's going to absolutely cripple their entire economy. Throughout recent history, we've been hit with the line, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. And from the surface, this sounds like it makes sense, right? If you're not a bad person, if you're not committing crimes, you're going to do it right. All this new legislation that is monitoring people's phone calls, that is monitoring their DMs, that is hacking into their accounts, that's just there to protect us. And that you've only got a problem if you're trying to do harm to this country. But here's where the problem lies. Who defines what is doing harm to this country? And even if you trust the government of today, how can you trust the government of tomorrow that doesn't even exist yet? The United States just announced that every single person under the visa waiver program and ESTA, if you're not a US citizen, you will know this very well. If you are a US citizen, it is basically simple form. It costs like it costs like $20. I think it now costs much more. But you basically apply and it gives you 2 years access to the United States, 90 days a year. And it said that you could submit your social media history if you wanted to. But the difference now is it's not optional, it's compulsory. Once again, on the surface, it seems like, hey, cool, if you're not a danger to the country, you'll be fine, you'll be let in. But once they've access to this information, they are very much deciding what speech to prosecute and what speech to allow. We've already seen with this new administration that people are being turned away at the border simply because they have written articles, either as journalists or academics, that the current administration does not like. This is not a conspiracy theory, this is happening right now. But there are so many more downstream consequences other than just the suppression of free speech that I want to get into, and exactly why it's going to undermine the US economy moving forward, and how as a result, it will cause unemployment to rise, GDP to crumble, and the standard of living within the United States as a whole to basically deteriorate further than it already has. But don't worry, we're not safe either. Australia and Europe is not completely immune to the criticisms I'm about to lay, and exactly what we need to be aware of moving forward over the next 10 years. Countries are able to grow, and governments are constantly paranoid about maintaining stability. If people know what this country is going to look like over the next 10, 15, 20, 50 years, they are more likely to want to move there, build their careers there, build their lives there, and maybe invest entire businesses there. But if every single 4 years the rules of the game change, that from the Biden administration investing in renewables to then the Trump administration investing in fossil fuels and undermining those renewables, you completely discourage anyone from investing long-term in your country, because it might take 10 years to build an entire factory. It might take, 50 years of a working life. Are you really going to invest into that country if you don't know what it's going to look like, if the rules of the game are going to change at a moment's notice? And this uncertainty is what is at the core of what I'm about to discuss. The United States and even Europe and other countries like Japan, etc., have been able to win off their soft power. From the media that they've produced, they've been able to win huge amounts of tourism, huge amounts of economic output because of this image that they have portrayed for themselves around the world, that they're these glamorous, amazing places that are a dream bucket list to visit. But if this becomes undermined just a little bit, guess what? They're going to the other one. If you have a choice now between the United States and Europe, it's a bit different because I just came back from a trip in the US, it was absolutely amazing. But obviously I was in very specific parts of the country. But I've had so many people come to me and say, oh my God, how dangerous is it? How, broken is it? Were you scared? Were you worried? Are you okay? Because there has been this perception that has been built around the country of this dangerous, broken down, deteriorated place. Which obviously there are going to be some areas that are 100% like that. But I did not see myself, in some ways. By and large, it was still an absolutely incredible place to visit and hang out, and I would definitely want to live there one day. But from this perception that has been built, do I think that my friends now, if they said, what do I want to do? I want to travel. Do I want to do another Eurogap year? Or do I want to go to the US? Well, the US kind of looks a bit scary right now. I don't know what's happening. They're going to choose Europe. And if people stop deciding to travel to the US as tourists, guess what? Tourism is one of the best ways to get free money. People earn their money in another country, they come to yours, dump it into your local economy, and then go away again. They've cost you nothing and earned you countless sums of money. So if these people stop coming, your local economy crumbles. We saw that during COVID when travel ceased. Australia in particular was trying to promote domestic tourism to try and compensate for the lack of international travellers, because entire communities can crumble without it. I was in Vic Falls in Zimbabwe a few years ago, and just talking to the locals there and how precarious the situation was during lockdown because their entire town is tourism. If they don't have tourists coming to see Vic Falls, they don't have a local economy. And this extends further. If you're going to host a conference for work or research, are you really going to host it in a country where you don't even think your attendees will be able to enter? Or are you going to host it in a country that still encourages scientific research, that still invests into your field, and that you know everyone will actually be able to attend? You're not going to host a conference of democracy in Russia. And likewise, nowadays, are you really going to host an academic conference on scientific research in the United States? Just a little bit of uncertainty, even if it's only a few people who get stopped, that's enough to make these fundamental changes that undermine your perception as the dominant force in the world. So at the foundation, we've established that you may trust the government of today, but you don't know what the government of tomorrow will start policing. And once they have the powers to police and monitor speech and other forms of expression, they will never give that up. And that then results in things like a lack of tourism, a lack of business investment, which then means a lack of economic stimulation within the local economy, which means decrease in jobs, which can also lead to things like increased interest rates due to risk pricing in, and a million other factors here, which can cause disastrous effects. And yet, we're not done. The soft power that the US has been able to build over the past 60, 70, 80 years has allowed them to engage in a number of highly illegal practices around the world, whether it be war crimes, whether it be the toppling of whatever it is, 100 and something odd democracies. By being able to build this positive perception, it creates a halo effect. So this is shit we studied in university, where by creating goodwill, it allows you to survive controversies because people still tend to have a positive perception of you. But if these controversies begin to grow too big and start shrouding over any halo that you did build, maybe even because you're deliberately undermining your own halo, this shit doesn't even make sense, and why I think it's so baffling and unpredictable to so many people, and that unpredictability, once again, creates the effects that we have discussed. While I hate relying on investors and unpredictable markets and extremely wealthy individuals to dictate policy, that especially in a lot of cases is antithetical to the benefit of the people, it is extremely important to, once again, have that stability. Let's just say someone wanted to film a movie in Australia. Let's keep it simple. That movie might take 3 years to film. Maybe not, maybe a bit quicker, maybe 2 years. But if someone doesn't know whether their tax benefits or their ability to access talent or their ability to work across borders will stay stable within those 2 years, do you really think they're going to come over at all, pay your local people a salary, invest into your local infrastructure? Of course not. So you need that stability. And also, I think one of the biggest fundamental issues with when Doge came about in the United States, as a core idea, it makes sense. And that is half the problem here. This shit makes sense at a core idea. But very rarely does the media, does the press actually push further and explain to the populace what the hidden effects are. On the surface, it sounds great. Let's, increase efficiency, reduce waste. But the problem is that you cannot treat a government like a business. If government messes around, people die. People simply die. You can't afford to fuck around and find out. You can't afford to move fast and break things. In a business, cool. At worst, maybe it means you lost a bit of cash. In government, people die. Whether it be the cutting of foreign aid, whether it be the undermining of healthcare, whether it be the inaction of foreign wars, all of these things cause people to be put in harm's way because someone with the wealth of nearly half the country decided to come in and mess around and treat the most important institution in our nation like his personal pet project. What I'm so excited for when I watch countries like Europe, not everything's perfect, but I see in a lot of ways them coming together and realizing that they have to build an opposing force to the US, that they have to build an attractive opposition. That if once again someone young, talented, and taxable comes along and says, where do I want to build my life? That Europe is trying to say, this is the place to be. Look over at the US, it's unpredictable, you don't know what's happening here. We're the ones that are going to invest in you, we're going to give you a free education, we're going to fund scientific research and infrastructure and projects, and make this the place that you not only want to live, but that you want to build the rest of your entire life and career. And they've still got a couple of things to modify, a couple of things to improve, but they've come a long way since the start of the European project. And I think give it another 5-10 years, and it'll be absolutely the greater alternative to the current downfall of the United States. I just came back from living 2 years in London. And when I was choosing where I wanted to live, there were kind of 3 options. There was the US, Canada, and the UK. Canada wasn't enough of an improvement to move there for work, So okay, US and the UK. The problem with the US, and the fundamental reason why I did not decide to move to the US, was because there was no visa for me to use to enter the country. As an Australian citizen, we have the easiest access to the US to be sponsored. If we want to be sponsored, it is incredibly easy. But if we want to go there on a working holiday, which is extremely common, effectively every single Australian goes on a working holiday to the United Kingdom. It's a rite of passage, if one will. It then means people will not only hang out there, work there in the cheap, shitty jobs, maybe decide that they love it so much they want to build the rest of their life there, but if that is not available to a country like the US, guess what? It's just simply not going to happen. So I decided to go to the UK. I had a European passport, so not only did that allow me to explore that continent far easier, Brexit finally impacted me. I mocked my British friends for years, and now I'm having to pay for a UK visa when I would have got that for free. Thanks, boomers. Fun fact, if Brexit had been voted on 5 years later, the results would have been the opposite way round, because simply old people would be dead by now. Morbid, but true. But the point being, I decided to move to the UK instead of the US, bring my talent and my taxable nature to the UK because it was far easier to access, and was far more inviting to someone like myself. An additional fact of why, when I was looking at the US which city to move to, I would have chosen New York over LA is infrastructure. Talk about ease to access, if I moved to LA I would have to buy a car. Where if I lived in New York, or once again lived in London, I don't need to buy a car. So there's even little nuances like that that make a huge difference. It's not just about getting permission to access the country, but also once you're inside, what you're then able to access. The best move a country can make is attract the young, talented, taxable people from other nations. Because another nation may have spent all that money raising that person from 0 to 18, or 0 to 23. They spent all that money on education, infrastructure, healthcare. So if you can steal those citizens, these already trained up citizens, for free by having an easier country to access, a better standard of living, and better career and life opportunities, you've won. You've gotten all of the benefit and none of the downside. So when a country actively tries to undermine this, like for example the United States increasing the difficulty to get into the country, decreasing investment, and trying to dissuade immigration, you ask why? In what world does this make sense? The H-1B visa in the United States, which basically is skilled immigration, that is one of the fundamental reasons why the US has been the innovation center of the world. For one, they have huge amounts of dumb money to invest in companies, but they also have the ability to once again steal talented, taxable people at the peak start of their working life. And this has allowed them to make themselves the center of the world when it comes to tech and innovation and scientific research. But without this, the active undermining of this, I don't even want to say anymore. And this doesn't even go into the fact of journalism and free speech and the ability to express political opposition to your leadership, and the fact that really in most Western countries, we don't operate in a democracy anymore. It seems like at every turn the New South Wales government tries to institute laws banning protests, or the United Kingdom declaring activist groups as terrorist organizations, so much so they just arrested Greta Thunberg for holding a piece of cardboard. The greatest images to come out of that incident have been basically 80-year-old grannies being hauled off into the back of police vans. And for those of you who don't know, a little while ago, can't remember this year or end of last year, the UK government declared Palestine Action a terrorist organization. And as a disclaimer, if the UK government is watching this right now, I'm not expressing support in any way, shape or form, I'm just describing the incidents that occurred. The UK government declared Palestine Action an activist organization supporting the Palestinian cause, a terrorist organization. They lumped them into a bunch of other Nazi groups and said to their members of parliament that you now have to vote on this as a group, meaning that members of the Labour government in the United Kingdom had to decide, do we say these Nazi groups should be banned or not banned? You get my point. They had to choose one or the other, either not ban Nazi groups or ban Palestine Action. So this legislation went through. But you know the crime that they committed to be declared such? It wasn't, hurting anyone. It wasn't causing great harm like many of the other notable groups causing havoc around the world. It was putting red paint onto a military aircraft. That was it. They put red paint onto a plane and they got declared terrorists. And if you have UK citizens that want to stand up to this, guess what? They'll be hauled off and charged with supporting a terrorist group. You have Sally Rooney, who has been expressing support for the organization, said that she'll donate the proceeds from her books, notably Normal People is her main novel that's really gotten huge popularity over the past couple of years. She'll donate the profits of that to the group. But as a result, it means that she can now no longer enter the UK with fear of being arrested because she wants to support this activist organization. And young people don't have the ability to stand up to policies like this, because if they do, if they get arrested, if they get a criminal record, it hurts their ability to get a job, get a mortgage, and function. So you've just seen this incredible effort of old people who have already owned their home, who have already finished their working life, willing to hold a piece of cardboard expressing support for this group, and getting themselves arrested, clogging up the court system, clogging up police effort and time, so much so that a lot of police forces around the UK have simply stopped bothering arresting these people because they just find it's not worth it. It's better spending their time allocating their resources towards, let's just say, more pressing issues. But the images that have come out of this are incredible. But it's just another example of Western nations inhibiting their population's ability to express dissent for their current policies. And because I'm trying to share the love here, it's not only the US that's doing a bunch of bad shit, it is also our own countries. And from this, you also see a lot of our nations, they try and point the finger to everywhere else saying, no, you're lucky, we have it nice here, look how bad it is overseas. And you're like, is it actually? Yeah, China does a lot of bad stuff. Yeah, Russia does a lot of bad stuff. But if you actually look at the quality of life of a lot of these people, in a lot of ways they seem a lot better than a lot of the people in our own countries. While China has lifted 1 billion people out of poverty over the past 40 years, the United States has put 60% of their population paycheck to paycheck. I'm not saying I prefer to live in China than the United States, mainly just because of the language barrier. I don't speak Chinese. But the point being, we've got to be careful when our nation states say, hey, look, those are the bad guys, and are deliberately trying to point attention away from their own actions and their own failings. And this is compounded by the fact that we have less and less of an effective fourth state. In the sense that the fourth state was established, this means press and journalism, to hold our other states to account. That being the government, the court systems, and the police force. You've one to write the laws, you've one to interpret the laws based on case by case, and you have one to enforce the laws. Meaning, in theory, none of these can go out of control. Because if the police start going AWOL, guess what? The government can write new legislation, and the courts can hold them to account. If the courts start going AWOL, guess what? The police can arrest them, and the government can write new legislation. If the government starts going AWOL, the police can enforce the court's rulings. But if we don't have a fourth estate that then allows the people to truly understand what is happening in these three pillars, our countries begin to deteriorate. In Australia, effectively all our traditional media distribution is owned by two companies, Nine Entertainment and the Murdoch Press. And sure, you might say you don't watch TV, but if you watch anyone online, guess where they're getting their journalism from? Probably one of these two places. And if you look at the United States or even Europe, Murdoch once again also holds a stranglehold in both of these continents. And even if it isn't Murdoch owned, the ownership is still probably extremely wealthy to the point of desperate to protect their assets, their power, and their control that can continue to enrich themselves. So it's so important to know that a lot of these institutions, not that they have ever been, but arguably have been getting worse than ever, are there to protect the status quo that is currently benefiting them, rather than to actually represent the needs of the people to make the country better and more well off. That would sure make these uber wealthy people slightly poorer, but actually lift the standard of living for everyone else. For every extra house Bezos is able to acquire, some other family is not able to buy one for themselves. For every extra dividend payment Musk is able to get from Tesla, that's an extra dollar that isn't put into the pockets of the people who actually created that value, who actually built the cars, who actually sold the cars, who actually fueled the company that has made him the richest person in the world. If we don't have the ability to criticize our own governments, if we don't have the ability to express opposition or speak freely or have the confidence that things will remain and that the current systems and rules of the game in place will have some level of stability throughout our working life, what are we even doing here? The idea of home ownership and home investment has created huge problems. We promised the Gen X and Boomer generations that if they just buy a house, that if they buy an investment property, they will be secured for the rest of their life, that this is the Australian dream, that this is the American dream. But the problem with that is that then means no one else is able to have a future. The only people a housing price increase benefits is orphans. Even if you're a boomer or a Gen X with a home, cool, your house has gone up by $1 million, but guess what? You have to buy back into an already inflated market. The only way you benefit is by selling your inflated home and moving to bloody Thailand or something, where housing prices are probably cheaper is my guess. I haven't looked into the Thailand housing market. You let me know. But because we've created these false promises, because we've led people down these paths that this is the way to succeed, we're in fear of undermining those promises. We don't actually build a country that is good for the next generation. And even you see within a lot of the press or a lot of government rhetoric, it's about, oh, cool, we'll just wait till this generation dies and then they'll hand their monies to the kids and then the kids will be able to buy a house. For one, I hope my parents aren't able to hand me a dime until, I'm 50 years old, right? You want them to live a long time. And if I'm 50 years old by the time I'm buying my first house, I don't even have to explain what a problem that is. That also assumes that your parents have money. You keep hearing in the press this idea of the banking mum and dad, that they'll just help you get your first home. What fucking world do you live in that your parents can give you a $100,000 loan to buy your first home? Because that sure isn't me. This detachment from reality, this absolute lack of incentive to make things better for the common man, and the absolute inability of the press to function as their responsibility has been bestowed upon them, just fractures the foundation of society and our ability to function as an effective economy, as an effective nation state, as an effective community. But I don't want to be completely negative here. I've been ranting for a while about a lot of shit that's going on, and I have plenty of videos of things that are going right, things that are going well. I've even thought sometimes of if I was, obviously we don't want this, 100% don't want this, but if you were dictated for a day and you could make unilateral decisions on policy, what would you do to make the country better? And I will put together a video like that because I think I have some interesting ideas, but then it's also interesting to see what are the downstream flow-on effects, because these are complex systems with infinite collateral if certain decisions are made, which are impossible to fully calculate. But I think it's sometimes important to discuss these points of risk as well as what to look forward to. I think if, once again, I was established in this dictatorship position, which once again, we do not want, you do not want me doing that, I think one of the things that I would 100% invest in is marketing. So one of the best things the government can do is, going back to the thing of soft power, is invest in marketing. The whole line of ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Just this change in confidence, this perception, can create countless exponential effects that are far cheaper to implement. So often you have this perception that, oh my god, crime's going up, when in reality in most communities it's actually not. Crime's on the decline. There are some areas that are spiking, but by and large it's not. If people watch TV with cops, if people watch TV with doctors, they fundamentally think there are more doctors and more police than there actually are. That this media consumption is so essential to creating a certain mindset within your population, on top of actually improving society, whether you can produce materials that can give people the confidence that society is improving, that they can invest in the world that we are trying to create, creates this positive manifestation effect that actually creates the reality that we want to see. The whole American dream of working hard, if you genuinely think that working hard will yield results, guess what? It's probably more likely you will see results. While for most people that is not the case, and it's an absolute myth that has been perpetuated with effectively nothing backing it up since the 1980s, for just those few, it will make all the difference. So can we try and create a nationwide campaign really promoting that and really saying, here's why our country is great, here's why you should come here if you're a tourist, here's why you should come here if you're a talented, skilled worker, and here's why you should be proud to live here if you're a citizen. That is a hugely underrated resource that I don't think enough governments capitalize upon. A little while ago, I made a video talking about Aisha Speed's journey to China and the positive PR that he brought to that country. And I referenced the fact that Oprah, when she came to Australia all those years ago, that she did the exact same thing. Tourism from Americans to the country spiked hugely after that. And that just these little bits of investment, just these little changes, can make all of the difference. Much of the world today is based on Keynesian economics. That's the idea of animal spirits, that economies don't behave rationally, that they behave with the masses, i.e. that there's huge confidence that the economy will do well. Guess what? It will go into a boom. And guess what? When people think it's not going to go well, they're going to pull all their money out and it's going to absolutely crash. So the goal of the government within this economic system is to try and stabilize that process. When things are doing well, dampen the brakes a little. When things are going bad, put some optimism, some inspiration, some fuel back into the fire. And I think we need to treat the marketing around our country in that same way. That just a little bit of fuel in the fire can hugely boost confidence, can hugely boost optimism. If you look at a lot of what the Starmer government is doing in the United Kingdom, there are some things there that they're doing that is really, really good. They have some really amazing policies that they are putting into effect. And yet they are undermining these good policies, the goodwill that could be built from these good policies, by constantly promoting some horrendous, terrible things. whether it be racist rhetoric and speeches, whether it be the capitulation to Farage and his party, whether it be the constant undermining of civil liberties and democracy. They have such the ability to do well, to do what Albanese has been able to do as head of Australia's government, except they have taken the complete opposite path. It would be like in Australia if instead of Albanese saying, hey, let's invest into the future, they're like, actually, let's capitulate to Pauline and the rise of one nation. Or for my American compadres, Mamdani getting in and saying, hey, instead of looking to the future, let's actually see what Ted Cruz is doing in Texas and try and copy him. Because it looks like he's been doing well in Texas recently. You'd be like, what? What are you talking about? And that's what it seems like the UK government has been doing, is at all costs undermining all of the good that they're doing by highlighting and accentuating all of the bad. And while I don't necessarily agree with everything that Albanese has been doing in Australia, most of it I do. Most of it I think they're doing a great job. Definitely a couple things that I might don't know about that, son. They have been able to promote and advertise the good shit, which has been able to gain them record-breaking popularity. Once again, as opposed to the complete and utter failings of the current UK government. So if you want to build a good country to live in, you need stability, you need predictability, you need a hopeful future to look forward to, you need the establishment and maintaining of effective fourth estates to hold corrupt individuals to account that can further give people confidence in the future of your country. You need people to feel proud of where they are from, you need them to advocate on your behalf. You need to build a country that people admire, that they look up to, that sets a standard for what a society, for what a community should look like. And if you're able to do this by letting people in, by building up this vision for what a future can be, by helping the community at large and not the already wealthy elites, by, once again, establishing structures that allow transparency and confidence in the systems, and that people can have that confidence that the system is working for them. This is how you win. This is how we can build a future that we are proud of, a country that we can be proud to live in and call our home. Don't fall for the chaos, don't fall for the mess, see through the bullshit, understand the current power structures that are in play, and do everything you can to help them start working for you again, and not just the few people who own them. And if you're still here right at the end of this video, this secret little magazine that's been sitting in the back of the video this whole time that I put together and released a few months ago has some incredible stories about my experience in Downing Street, as well as other amazing creators in this world that are trying to create a positive impact within their communities. Stuff that you can learn from, stuff that you can be inspired by. So to get your hands on it right now before we run out of stock, we've got limited supply. So if you want one, grab it at the link in the description.